So in your copy of the Google Sheets for the lab data, you're going to use Google Sheets to do math for you. So I'm going to teach you how to use equations in Google Sheets. It will make taking data so much easier. Otherwise, you have to just type each individual piece in. What I'm going to teach you here, you just have to type in one piece of information and it auto-populates everything but the friction forces. So if you notice, we've got mass in grams, then mass in kilograms. You would need to convert there. I'm going to teach you how to make Excel do that, or excuse me, Google Sheets do that for you. Then you'd need to convert again for the force of gravity. And then you'd need to set normal force equal to the force of gravity. And then you've got normal force again. I'm going to show you how to auto populate. All right. So all you'll have to do is insert your mass in grams and then the particular static friction force and kinetic friction force. And once you set up these equations, it'll do the rest of the math for you. So this value right here, when you put a value in, it does nothing. It just puts a value in. So what you want to do, if you want a cell to refer to another cell, you click on the cell in question. You hit equals, and you're telling that cell that there's going to be an equation to follow. And you have to then tell it what the equation refers to. You click on this cell. So do this with me. All right, so as I do this, you should be doing this. So you say equals A2, and I want it to convert from grams to kilograms. So I need to divide by 1,000. That's going to be backslash. It's the one with the question mark. And you type in the number 1,000. All right, then you hit enter. And any number you put in here, this cell will be that number divided by 1,000. I want this to apply to all 8 cells. So I'm going to take this blue box in the bottom corner. I'm going to click it. I'm going to drag it down. Do you see the dotted line that's extending? I'm going to go from 2 all the way down to 9. So from 2 to 9. And now what I've told it is repeat that reference for all of these right here. So anything I put in this column instantly gets divided by 1,000 and inserted into this column. All right, so you click this equals this cell, A2, backslash, that means divided, and you click 1,000. You hit enter, click on that cell, drag it down all the way to 9, and it's going to copy that. It's going to copy that equation. Well, now I want to convert to weight. Well, kilograms. Yeah.
Like type equals.
You just click it, and it'll select the cell, and you hit backslash 1,000. Then enter. All right, so watch this one and see if you can kind of apply the same idea. So if I want to convert from kilograms to weight, I have to multiply by the acceleration due to gravity because it's mg. And g here, we're going to use 10. We're going to make it easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set weight equal to, I click the cell in question. That's going to be my mass in kilograms. Then I want it to multiply it by 10 because that's the acceleration. So the multiply button is Shift 8. There is a star above 8. That's a multiply button. It's going to be Shift 8. And then I'm going to type the number 10. And what you're telling it is this cell is equal to the previous cell multiplied by 10. And then you hit enter. You're going to click on that 0, click the blue box, and drag down all the way to cell 9. And now you told it for every entry, multiply by 10. Well, it turns out that normal force is equal to gravity. So it's equal to weight. So all I have to do for this one is say equals, click the cell I wanted to equal, and then hit enter. I click this 0, drag it down, and now it's auto-populating. The last thing I'll do is this normal force right here. I'll click this normal force, I'll hit equals. I'll click the normal force there. I'll hit enter. I'm going to click on this cell, click the blue box, drag it all the way down. So now what I've done is I've told it everything's referring back to A because A informs B, B informs C, C informs D, D informs F. So watch this. If I have 100 grams, and this will be the same for everybody, so you can test it out. Your first data point for every single trial is going to be 100 grams. That's where you start for all 5 different surfaces. When I hit enter, watch what happens. It auto-populates every single one of those tabs. So all you'll have to do is insert mass. Do that. So once I release you, the first thing you need to do is set that equation for every tab. Because unfortunately, it doesn't auto-populate in the next tab. So again, you set this one to divide A by 1,000. You set C to multiply B by 10. You set D equal to C, set F equal to D. Okay. Again, B equals A divided by 1,000. C equals B times 10, which is shift 8, 10. D equals C, and F equals D. If you set that equation up, then it's going to auto-populate any answer once you put in your mass. So I want to point this out because I don't think I pointed it out in fourth period and people were confused. When you take all 8 data points, you'll graph this. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. Then when you get to your next data set, there's a tab in the bottom. This is the next type of surface. You'll do the same thing. You'll need to set up the equation for this one. I suggest you go ahead and first thing, set up your equations for all 5 tabs. So you've got aluminum on steel, glass on glass, graphite on graphite, and wood on lab table. If you go through and set up these equations, you won't have to come back to it and remember how to do it. And it'll be there when you get to that data point. All right, so I'd suggest once I let you guys start working, and you might want to go ahead and do it while I'm talking, go ahead and set up the equation. So I'm going to remind you, I'll do this second one just to show you. This one is equal to the previous divided by 1,000. You hit enter. Remember that you have to auto-populate that all the way down. So you click that blue box and drag it all the way down to 9. Then weight equals the previous mass in kilograms multiplied by 10. That's shift 8, then the number 10. You hit enter, click that, drag that blue all the way down. Normal force will equal the previous. Enter. And then sometimes it'll suggest autofill. Hit yes, because that's what you're doing. So if it gives you that option, hit yes. It might not. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. As you see, that's the first time it suggested it for me. Then we're going to hit this equals normal force there, hit enter, and then it asks me if I want to autofill. That's yes. So I've set up my equation for 2 tabs. I'd go ahead and do it for glass, graphite, and wood. All right, it's that same process. If you go ahead and handle it, then data collection becomes significantly easier, and you're just inputting mass, static friction, and kinetic friction. All right. So inserting data there becomes a lot easier with this. So the last thing I'm going to show you is how to actually use the lab. So the first thing you want to do is set mass down to 100 because that's the lowest value. That's where you're going to start each of the 5 different surfaces. You want to make sure you have rubber on ice. In order to change your surface type, you just click on the title. So you got aluminum on steel, glass on glass, graphite on graphite. Be careful when you get to the 5th tab not to just not read it. It needs to be wood on lab table. The concrete one is in between, and then it's back to rubber on ice. All right, so we're not doing the one with concrete. Be careful when you get there to just not assume. So we've got rubber on ice. We're going to start taking data. As we start to take data, it's going to populate the data, and then it's going to show you everything here. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your maximum value for static friction. In this case, if that's 0.1, that's 0.12, or that's 0.11, that's 0.12. So that would be the value that I'd put there, 0.12 for static friction. So 100 grams, static friction is 0.12. All right, now I come down to kinetic friction. That line's pretty much its own average. It's not super thick. You'll get some later that are super spread out, and you'll have to take an average. Here, you're just really going to look at the value, and that value seems to be right there on that gray line. And if this is 0.05, that's 0.06. This is 0.07. So 0.07 is what I would put here. You could be specific and say 0.075 if you want to get really accurate. But you don't have to. 0.07 would work here. So for my first values, I would go in and I would put, this is rubber on ice. I said 0.12 there and 0.075 there. I'm done with my first trial out of 8 for this surface. Then when you're ready to do the next one, remember that you have to stay on the tab for it to work. Let me show you what happens if you leave the tab. So if I reset it, I increase my mass, I hit start, and I walk away. I go to anything else. I can go to the Google Sheet, doesn't matter. When I come back, it's still moving. And look at the data it didn't take. You will aggravate the mess out of yourself if you try to leave. You just have to keep it open, and it takes about 5 seconds to run. That's why I told you we have so much time to do this, because I want to make sure you have plenty of time to take the data. All right, music will be your best friend for this. All right, zone out in the music and just get into the swing of doing this, and make sure you're just carefully paying attention to your scaling. All right, so if you don't stay on there, you're going to have to do the trial again, and that's going to aggravate you a lot more. So it's going to populate there. I would take this maximum value right there. So that's 0.2, that's 0.25. So that's going to be 0.255. Right, that would be the number I'd write there for whatever this mass is, 219. All right, so my second data point, I'd have 219. It's going to instantly put in all my forces that are not friction. Then I take 0.255, and the average here, if this is 0.15, and that's 0.16, 0.17, it's going to be about 0.16. All right, I'd put those two values in. I'd put 0.255 and 0.16. I will do that 8 times. What I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to insert random values here. All right, 3, 4, 10. Let's just say these are the values you've got. This is why I told you you want to put in the equations, because just putting in the masses, I'm almost done. I just have to write in I'm just going to randomly put in some numbers here. I'm just doing this to show you how to graph. The last thing we're going to do is graph this data. I want to make sure you know how to graph it. All right, so we'd say, looking at that relationship, all right, so this is just my randomly generated data that doesn't come from anything. So when I'm ready to graph, once you've done all 8 trials, you're going to highlight the 2 columns. And notice how I've got normal force there twice. That is so you can just highlight this when you're ready to do kinetic, right? Because otherwise you'd have to insert another normal force. So I've got that set up for you. So you're going to highlight this. You go to insert. You're going to go to chart. The first thing it's going to show you is a bar chart. That's wrong. You don't want a bar chart here. You want a scatter plot. So you're going to go to chart type. It's the very first option. So don't freak out. Chart type, and you have to scroll. You're going to go to scatter. All right. So this scatter plot is going to be my data. Well, that's looking pretty linear, right? There's no curves there. That's a pretty linear data set. So what you want to make sure is that normal force is on your x-axis and static friction force is on your y-axis. So whatever friction you're graphing, either kinetic or static, needs to be on your y-axis. Whatever, and then normal force needs to be on your x-axis. So everything there looks good. Then you go to customize, and this is where you make it look good. All right, customization. You're going to go to chart and axis titles. So if you want to add a chart title, you go chart title. If you want to add a horizontal axis title, well, horizontal axis here is going to be normal force. The X is normal force. The y-axis is going to be frictional force, whichever frictional force you're graphing at that point. Spell force wrong. There we go. So, and then your chart title should be static friction versus normal force, or kinetic friction versus normal force. Once you do it once, it has it as an option later. So you just have to type out your axes titles and your chart title once, and then it's going to be a drop-down option, and you can just click it, and it goes a lot faster. All right, the first time is the hardest. This is the case with literally anything new. But once you've got that, the last thing you have to do is go to series. This is going to be recorded, so you have reference to this video later if you need to see it. All the way down to the bottom, you're going to insert trend line. This is the point of graphing, is so you can get a slope. The slope of this is the important part. That's what you end up comparing later. And when you get slope, that doesn't give you an equation, so that doesn't help you. So you need to go to label, use equation. So the three things I just showed you: scatter plot, just ensure that this is the right data, that normal force is on the X. Then you go to customize, you give yourself titles, chart title and axis titles. And then you go to series, insert trend line, insert equation, label it with an equation. Those are the steps you need for your graph. Once you have an equation, let's look at the equation I've got right here. This equation tells me 0.836. That is my coefficient of static friction. I want to remind you right here, our formula was that static friction is equal to coefficient of static friction multiplied by normal force. So on a graph, this is y. That's why it's on your vertical axis. This is m. That's your slope of the line I just generated. And normal force is on your x-axis, actually. So that is x. So the slope of these graphs is going to be the coefficient of friction, and whichever type of friction it was is which type of coefficient you're dealing with. So that's why you have to have that equation, because it's going to spit out your coefficient, and that's going to be what you need your graph for. All right. You'll do the exact same process for kinetic. You'll name it kinetic friction versus normal force, and you'll insert a trend line, generate an equation, and then use that equation slope to calculate the coefficient of kinetic friction. So once you're done with that and you've got it labeled, you kind of minimize it, get it down there. This is what you're going to copy. So you're going to copy this entire block for the data. When it asks copy data here or paste data here, get all 4 of these, because that's your data. Then when it asks for the graph, you can copy chart, and you just right click copy into the Word document. Okay. Once you finish this tab, so now that you guys have seen all this, the first thing I want you to do is set up the equations for all 5 tabs. Okay, go do that right now. I don't want you guys to get off. Then start taking data if you get to it. So your goal right now, by the end of this class period, is to have your equations set up for all 5 tabs. All right. If you don't get anything else done, you're on track. All right. So the equations are going to be the same for every single tab. So it's divide by 1,000 times 10 equals. Here, I'm gonna write it down for you.
Thank you. Is that I forgot? I was gonna write down my notes, but it takes too long.
Yes.
I gotta go do this slide.
All right. So
I
make
already got it all down.
awesome. All right. Does anyone at home have questions right now?
I have to go do blanks. I have to take out the blanks.
Put it down every day.
We put up everything I have. We also have to know when to do half post.
Oh yeah. So you guys got to stay on top of the news.
Yeah. I mean, we do current events every week, so. Well, what ones?
So, Mr. Sellers, can you repeat that you said divide by 1,000, multiply by 10. And what was the last one?
So B is equal to A divided by 1,000. C is equal to B times 10. And then D equals C and F equals D, if we're talking about column titles. So normal force equals weight and normal force equals normal force.
Oh, alrighty. Thank you.
right, so this is the shorthand. That is data. So where are your equations? Do you have your equation shut up here for your first tab? So just insert a number there. So you got 100. All right, so just type in any number right there. Just make sure that's right. All right, so you've got your equation here. So let's go to your second tab. All right, so did you set the equation up here?
Sure, I was still on this one, and then so now I've got I like lost change, sort of like
Okay, so yeah, right now you've got that equal to that. There we go. So right now, this one is this one equals. We click this cell, then hit backslash. Question mark is 1,000. Enter. There. Now put something down here and let's see if it auto-populates. 1, 2, 3. So you're going to set that up. So this is the general idea. P equals A divided by 1,000. C equals B times 10. D equals C. F equals D. And then you just have to drag it down. Yep. You got questions? Let me know. No problem. All right, for those of you at home, how you doing? We got any questions? You need any clarity? Again, your goal right now is to get the equation set up for all 5 tabs. If you can do that, you're ahead of the game. And if you guys, go ahead. What's that?
Where will the video of the recording of you in the Google Sheet, where that be posted?
So that's going to be posted in the same place you see all of these things. Unfortunately, I can't post actually what I'm going to do, you guys stay in the Zoom call. I'm going to close the Zoom call so I can start downloading the video. I'm going to try to have that up by the end of the day. So I have to close the Zoom call, download the recording, upload it to YouTube, and then copy the paste over. So there's a little bit of a process. That's like my limiting factor right now. So what I'm going to do is well, we got 6 minutes. So what I'll do is as soon as class is over, I'll start working on uploading it and just look out for it by the end of the day. But if you have any specific questions right now, I can help you out.
Yes, sir. I don't have any specific questions. I got it down for the most part.
Awesome. All righty. So as I stated, those instructional videos will be up sometime today. All right. So just keep an eye out for them. I'm going to put them in 4th and 7th period once I get the YouTube video up. Wish there was a faster way to upload it. Yeah, Turner, I realized with AP that there's no way that I could expect someone to go through each individual data point and put that in because it was making my eyes get crossed. I was like, I know there's an easier way to do that. So no problem there. It's it's just a quality of life improvement.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it.
No problem. So yeah, the mask is going to be randomly generated to have authentic data for everybody. Everybody's data will be slightly different. Well, I mean, everybody's first data point will be 100 because that's the lowest threshold. So this is pretty much what we're doing for the next 3 days. So if you can just stay on task in class, I promise you got enough time to handle all the data. And then if you have any questions along the way, make sure you guys ask. So let's see. The awesome thing about labs like this is if you're motivated, you get it done and you ask questions whenever you're confused, you can finish early. And then I've already allotted the whole week. So if you finished on Thursday, you'd have Friday off. So just think about it like that. And maybe that's a good motivator. So the static friction and the kinetic friction is the stuff you're getting from the lab. So the mass, the static friction, and kinetic friction. So static friction will be the maximum value in slope. And the kinetic friction is the average of that horizontal velocity. So you kind of go in between the two extremes, and somewhere between that is going to be your kinetic. Yes, exactly. Because static friction increases as you continue to push until you reach a threshold, and then it finally gives way. And so you're just recording the maximum difference. Yes, you got like 2 minutes to do so. Yes.
Why is that one? Also, what is?
Did you insert your number? Like, did you insert, like, that is the value. So this is the value that I took.
So, did
Additionally, citizen for the interruption for a quick afternoon
So
announcement.
static friction is
Please
gonna be.
drive at
Static
8:33 or right now.
Very
Right now, 28. Thank you for your cooperation as we have moved back into in-person
Static, that's
Like
what you're
I
gonna
say,
say.
please
That's
be
gonna be
aware.
the maximum number of that.
Yeah, we are in this. Still, that's it.
And that
There are
calculates this,
guidelines
this,
that we're still
this.
trying to adhere to.
So we'll do that.
Right, those that, where we are able
So
to.
this right, that last stop, that's the number you report for that.
Continuously to where I'm at, where them appropriately throughout.
That's gonna be the hardest thing is recall.
Consistency, also be reminded
And
to
then we're
bring
gonna
them
take the average of this line. You know, right now, it's not much.
every day. We do have some extra
You'll get
mass
some
here.
that might be that low, and you just go after
Play this every day.
So when you get to later examples where the friction is really, it's
We all have to do this together.
you're gonna have to actually add it.
Right now, we go after a few times with these things on. We'll all work together to keep everyone safe.
So static friction.
Thank you and have a great day.
So this is 0.1, that's 0.15, 0.16, 0.17, 0.18, 0.17, 0.18, 0.175. So you can do 0.175. I wouldn't go, I'd only do half. You can only do half the most accurate value. You can't go between halves. Then you're essentially saying, I'm more accurate than I have right to do this. So 0.175. And then your kinetic is taking the average of that work. So in the 1 minute that we have left, just as a reminder, make sure you get your masks on right, and that you're social distancing. That's what that meant. And then note, you can do this. You just have to stick with it. Find a song or a playlist you really like, and then just power through it. Once you do the first one, the other ones are just rinse and repeat. All right. Promise you can do it. And you'll learn more about friction doing this than just what we talked about yesterday. Bye, you as well. Bye. Almost did. Killed me with kindness.
It is kindness. You need to teach,
Yep.
teach Camille how to do that. It's very
I'm always nice to you.
I'm making that face to
I
do
just,
so
I
now.
just waited.
Y'all have a great day.